The biggest battle that we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will be interviewing individuals who have done that, who have gone through the struggles, who have tried to create a reality in all that they could. And when all the odds were against them, they made the impossible possible. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for being on the podcast and taking this journey with me as we go through and discover different avenues to break through those limits, different avenues to help you expand your reality so that you can evolve into the person that you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome to the show. This is Dr. Vic, and you are listening to the Mindful Experiment. And today we are talking about the amazing things that humans do, which is we are the best storytellers. We tell ourselves stories every single day. You probably told yourself a story today that you believe in. You may have told yourself a story yesterday. The thing is, we constantly tell ourselves stories and we believe in them and we create belief systems out of these stories. Think about when you were a kid, did your parents tell you about a story of the monster in the closet or the monster underneath your bed or the monster somewhere and you believed it? Or how about the story of Santa Claus? When you fully believe, and I'm not saying I still believe there's a spirit of Christmas, but but when it comes to the Tooth Fairy or the story of Santa Claus, a man coming down the chimney and sees everybody, you believed it at one point, and then there came a point in time in your life where you just all of a sudden stopped believing it. You stopped giving it power, and then it didn't exist anymore. How about the other things in your life? Let's look at, for example, a story of how well or how not well you do something. How about a sport, a musical instrument? When we look at the things in life that we utilize and experience and we tell ourselves a story, that story becomes what the reality is. And so, for example, let's think of someone, as you're listening, I want you to think of someone that you dislike, someone you don't like, you don't get along with whatsoever. What's the story that you're telling yourself? What's the story that you're telling about that person that you believe to be true? And now some may go, well, that's just, you're telling me a story is just what tells the truth? It does. Unfortunately, yes. The story is what creates your reality. So in order for you to truly, you talk about someone who you dislike or someone you're around and you can't stand them whatsoever, pay attention to the story you're saying about them. What do you believe to be true? And whatever you believe is not truth. It's your perspective. It's a percentage of the truth, but it's not the whole thing. Getting a little deep here today. We're gonna rub some shoulders here today. And so the thing is, when you look at your life and you look at every aspect of your life, what's the stories you're telling yourself? What's a belief system that you have? Hell, my belief system growing up, and it was up until late 20s actually when I discovered it, was I don't think I'm good enough. I don't think I'm great enough. I don't think I have good self-worth. And so I would do things, and I couldn't understand why I got into these cycles, these patterns. And it was very frustrating for me because I would do stuff, and I'd be like, why am I doing this? I would never do something like this. Why am I doing this? And I would go through patterns and try to figure it out. Then all of a sudden I found out self-worth, self-belief in myself. And I held that to be true for over almost just about 30 years. And then there came a point in my life where I just said, I'm not doing it no more. If I held that belief system for so long, man, I have the power to hold any belief system. And so instead, why choose a story or a belief system that doesn't empower me or help me achieve the dreams, the goals, and the visions of what it is I want to achieve? How about choose a different story that creates the goals, that creates the vision, that creates the life that you want to experience? It's a pretty cool thought, right? Think about that for a second. You're telling me if I just believe in a different story that my life can totally change. It's pretty much that simple. You got to believe the story, repeat the story, constantly see that story, and eventually the brain will break a pattern and see something different. The thing is, it doesn't happen overnight, guys. There's no magic pill. On this radio show, this podcast, this radio show, you're not going to hear about magic pills because they don't exist. It takes time, it takes work, but you got to stop. Well, first you got to stop looking at the negative side of the stories of what you're choosing and start looking at the positive. Create a different story that empowers your life. Believe it, fulfill it, make it happen. You know, in my life, I've come from a background. You know, financial freedom didn't exist in my world of what I grew up in, and so the stories that I heard and the belief systems were kind of on the negative side. It made money seem just not great. You know, more headaches, stress. Money attracts money. Money doesn't make you happy. All these different things, and I was always like, those were belief systems I grew up with. Until a point, I realized that I don't want to have those belief systems anymore, and I got to break those belief systems. So how about if I choose a different story? And the beautiful thing about a story is you get to create whatever it is you want. Let me rephrase that again. The beautiful thing about a story is you get to choose however you want that story to go and believe in it. For example, when I was 7 years old, I had a lot of issues with my health when I first came into this world, and they were just not leaving me alone. So at 7 years old, I remember going to a doctor's visit with my mother. And the doctor said, he looked at my left hip, and he said that I'm going to have issues with this left hip, and that unfortunately I would not be able to play any sports when I get into high school. And by the time I turn 30 years old, I'm going to need a hip replacement. I'll never forget this story. I'll never forget the day. Because as a kid who loved sports, loved just being active and playing with my friends, to hear something like that, no, I was just like, this can happen. This is impossible. How can, I was really emotionally upset. I was really kind of depressed that day. And then I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice whether, is it what the doctor's telling me to be true? Is that the story? Is that what I have to believe in? Is that just what it is? Or is there something different? Or is there some other story that I can believe in? And at that moment, I made a decision. I made a choice that I was going to prove him wrong. I made a choice that I was going to do whatever it took to make that happen. And what do you think the outcome was? I changed the story. I didn't believe in anything he had to say. And I said, my life's going to be completely different than what he's saying. And long story short, when high school came around, I played 2 sports in high school and 3 sports outside of high school. By the time age 30 came, took an x-ray of my hip, beautifully clean. Took an x-ray just recently, 34 years old, beautifully clean. Not even a speck of arthritis whatsoever. I believed in a story that was different than what was told. I created a different story of what I wanted to experience, and I made it possible. Now, I'm not saying you just make that choice and it's just going to happen, but you have to believe in it. You have to put power into it. And when you truly believe in a story, man, life transforms. And you have to consistently tell yourself that story. You have to consistently believe and let no distractions pull you away from the story and the belief system of what you're seeing. And when you do that, you create whatever life you desire. You create whatever life that you want to achieve and experience, and it happens. I've tested this theory out so many times in my life, and there are more and more times in my life where I'm catching more negative beliefs or stories that I'm buying into that are not empowering. You see, the beautiful thing about life is we always have the opportunity to create stories and create better stories and then better stories and then better stories and better stories. There's never an end to the story you can create, but you always catch yourself in new stories that you want to create that you thought before. That's evolution. That's you evolving. That's you expanding. That's you growing. So when you look at your life, truly take a moment and see what are the stories that are empowering you and which ones aren't. And it's very simple to do. Look at areas of your life that you love and look at areas of your life you don't love. Look at areas of your life you enjoy and the ones that you don't. Right there is the answer of what stories you're buying into. You see, why do you love this part of your life? Well, because of XYZ. There's a story. Now, what's the opposite? I don't like my job because my boss is an a-hole. Okay, there's a story. You believe your boss is an a-hole. You think your boss is out to get you. You think your boss is being negative to you. But no, Doc, I'm telling you, this is what he does and this is why. Okay, you're telling yourself a story, and now your eyes and your brain has to prove you to be right. You see, the thing about your brain and how the mind works, it's always have to prove you to be right. Whatever you dictate it to look for, it's going to go and prove to you that there it is. And as more you do that, the more it's going to happen. And this only happens when you truly, fully believe in it. Only when you truly are making that choice to move forward in it. But it is up to you to make that choice and create that story and move forward and know. And when you're truly making that choice, you're truly believing in that story, the mind starts to say, okay, I have to prove to you that this is how life is. This happens in financials. This happens in your health, your mental health, your career, your marriage, your relationships, your family, friends, and so much more. It happens in all arenas. So if you don't like the way something is, change the story. Simple. Life doesn't have to be so complicated. We've complicated things so much, and the reason why is because we keep dissecting and breaking down and putting labels and titles and this is this and this is that, and that's great. But now it's coming to a point where it's just everything's complicated. Everything. Nothing's simple anymore. And it's time to return back to simplicity. Change the story, believe in it, and your life will transform from there. Simple as that. Give it a shot. 30-day minimum. Okay? Takes 30 days to retrain the brain, to break a habit. 30 days. And to make it a lifestyle is an extra 60. So it's a 90-day pattern. You do that for 90 days, you train the brain to really start looking for something different. 90 days, minimum, 3 months. Okay? Give it a shot. Let me know what you think. Shoot me an email if you have any challenges or questions. I'd love to hear your stories. Go to our Facebook page on Facebook page on /empoweryourreality. You check it out and say hey episode with talking about your stories. Hey, this is what I hit. Here's my roadblock. Whatever. Share. It's a really cool group that we have on there to help you expand and grow and share stories and help just create dialogue of the podcast and everything else that we do at Empower Your Reality and the Mindful Experiment. So check it out. I want to thank you guys again. And remember, whatever story you believe in, you can change the story and you can create whatever it is you want. You're the creator. Choose a story that empowers you and believe in it 100% and know that nothing's going to interfere and nothing's going to take it away from you. And you will achieve whatever it is that you desire. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you rediscover who you really are, to break through those limits. For connecting with us on social media, please check us out on Facebook at www.facebook.com/empoweryourreality. You can check us out on Twitter. Our handle is Dr. Vic21. And also check us out on Instagram. It's instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. And as always, if this show you found to be helpful for you, by paying it forward and sharing this podcast with someone that you know who could benefit from it. And last but not least, if you liked the podcast show, please give us a review, 5-star. We'd appreciate that. Thank you for listening to the Mindful Experiment, helping you discover your infinite potential.